I want to tell you a story and tell you about what it taught me about God. So this past weekend, we went away overnight, and my 2-year-old decided he did not want to sleep in the pack and play. Nor did he want to sleep in the bed, nor did he want to sleep at all. My husband tried taking him on a drive. He came back awake. It took 4 hours to get him to sleep. He slept less than 2/3 of the amount of time he usually sleeps. It was a lot of fun. It was no fun at all. I was so frustrated, so mad at him at 11:30 at night. And what I wasn't able to recognize in that moment, but did later, and maybe next time when this happens, because we all know that my 2-year-old will annoy me again. What I realized later was what a joy and blessing it is to have him at all. When he was 3 days old and we brought him home from the hospital, he spiked a fever within 12 hours of getting home. And that's bad for newborns. So we brought him back to the emergency room, and they didn't really know what was wrong. And Jordan and I didn't have the courage to share this with one another at the time, but each of us wondered in the emergency room at 4 a.m. that Sunday morning whether we should baptize our baby, whether we would get to bring him home again. Now he is a thriving, willful 2-year-old, and so while I was stuck on that night when he wouldn't go to sleep, I was like stuck, right? That this was like all of reality right now, that I just couldn't take anymore because it was too frustrating, too maddening. But I think part of my problem in that moment was that I was focused on that moment and not a larger picture, pulling the lens out, pulling the focus out to a broader focus of the gratitude and joy of the existence and healthfulness of this boy. What inspired me to think about that was the sermon that I preached last Sunday, which I will find a way for you to check out or DM me and I'll send it to you somehow. Maybe I can upload it on here. So I preached about how the writers of the history in 2 Samuel were writing about this really victorious moment, this big deal of being united under King David, the beginning of this golden age of Israel. But the writers were writing it when they were in exile, years and years and years later. And I loved the way that they, in the middle of their hopelessness, in the middle of their loss, in the middle of their grief over where their lives had ended up, were still able to keep their eyes on the big picture, on the God of the whole story. That it wasn't just about their personal experience at the moment, which might have felt hopeless or dark or sad or griefful, but they were able to keep their eyes on the fact that the God they worship, the God to whom we are committed, is the God of all creation from beginning to end and everywhere in between. And what matters is not our momentary distraction or our momentary frustration or our momentary discomfort, but what matters is the spectrum of the entire story, the arc of all history. And so when we consider and put our little lives in perspective in that way, I think, and I find myself, that frustrations and distractions tend to fall away when we look at the vision of God and the arc of the whole story that God has written in Jesus Christ.